steroids and performance enhancing drugs.
You are going to be pushed towards there. The other problem then becomes it's illegal to use, but not illegal to take. It's a very bizarre sort of grey area that people are willing to sort of risk themselves taking stuff that's not manufactured properly.
Were you taking a risk with your health? One of the sort of big elephant in the room when it comes to fitness influencers that doesn't really get talked about are steroids and performance enhancing drugs. Do you think more people should be more open about that in that space?
It's a very difficult subject for the industry in whole. And I think the problem is that you could ask that question in a different way to a lot of professions.
Okay, interesting.
Do you think you should talk about the use of cocaine within different professions, such as banking?
Right.
Such as nurses and doctors? And then people might be very shocked with that. But if you actually look and research into it, there's a huge problem with different drugs in different professions. Not so much for the kick or the energy, just to keep the poor buggers awake.
Yeah.
There's a huge drug problem in many professions, and certain professions will carry different related problems. Now, I think in whole, the fitness industry gets hammered for this, and rightly so. I'm not defending it. The biggest problem is that they don't test the events.
Okay.
Right?
Like bodybuilding events.
Yeah, they don't test bodybuilding. Right.
Yeah.
Now, one of the main reasons that I never got competitive was because I was not willing to do what they'd have to do to get on stage. I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with anything. I'm saying from a personal point of view, it didn't mean enough to me to try and kill myself to win a trophy.
Yeah.
And then you start going down the route of, well, it's not illegal to own them or use them, but it's illegal to sell them.
Okay. Right.
So how does that work?
They get dropped from the sky.
Yeah, but then the other problem is because they are illegal to sell. I mean, the rules on drugs have changed a lot the last couple of years within testosterone. So you can now do TRT.
Yeah.
Right? That's the same thing, really. It's not the same thing in essence of adding mass amounts of muscle, but it's still a testosterone which increases performance. And the way that you'd have to get that is go for a doctor's test, and you'd have to be proven to have a lower testosterone than they would. It's a hormone replacement. Now, the problem with the fitness industry is because it's illegal to use, but not illegal to take. It's a very bizarre sort of grey area that people are willing to sort of risk themselves taking stuff that's not manufactured properly, that comes from backstreet labs, that no one really knows how it's made and what's in it and what the compounds are. And it's just an absolute minefield for individuals, especially young kids. I think it's a very interesting question. It's a very dangerous area because people are self-medicating with not bad intentions. You know, they're just trying to make themselves better, and they're not really using it as a drug that you'd use recreationally. They obviously feel bad about themselves. They want to look better. They want to feel better, and they're using drugs to help create that image that's been created falsely on social media over the last 20 years and mainstream media with how men should look, how women should look, the pressures of external marketing.
I guess so. You've got people like Arnold Schwarzenegger who have been very open and honest about what they've taken. And I imagine that would help with exactly what you described. People going, okay, well, he looked like that, but that's because of X, Y, and Z. And then you've got people like The Rock who everyone sort of speculates that he probably is on something, but people don't talk about. So do you think someone like him should say, yeah, I am on stuff? And
no, probably, I don't know. I mean, the problem lies deeper than individuals.
Okay.
You can look back through the whole of time and say, well, there was individuals with good bodies, there's individuals with bad bodies. I think the real problem is, where do we stand on it? You know, where do you stand on the...
Ethically, do you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're okay with promoting the outlook of something,
yeah,
and making money out of that and selling on top of that, then there's got to be an element of support around that. Because
okay,
it comes down to being more responsible with the people that can control it. And I don't really want to go down this rabbit hole of who is, who isn't, and what shouldn't. But what I will say is there's a lot of influential people out there, and there's a lot of influential youngsters out there who could really do with more advice and more guidance and more hope. You know, I think because we've destroyed so much in this world and where we are, there's so many people who are willing to roll the dice.
When you were up at 160 kilos,
yeah,
were you taking a risk with your health? Were you taking
I was
things
160 kilos, so I was eating excessive amounts of food, and I was stupidly over. Even though I was muscular, I was overweight.
Just
heavy.
Literal
just
weight.
Being heavy in itself, people don't realize. People always presume that, you know, you've got to do excessive amounts of drugs and this and that. And it really, it's not that. It's food. You can take all the drugs in the world.
Okay.
If you're not eating, it makes no difference.
Right. Okay.
Right. The biggest thing you've got to do is eat. Now, the problem with eating large amounts of food is you are heavy. If you're heavy with muscle or you're heavy with fat, it's massive stress on the heart.
Yeah, yeah.
Still got to fuel it. Still got to pump it. It's still got to get you around. And that's the biggest risk of being heavy, is the impact that the weight has on your system. The biggest risk it has, the amount of food you're eating, the amount of digestion issues you could come up against, the type of foods you eat. You're eating a lot of red meat and so on and so forth. I think anyone who takes sport excessively is playing with their health, because you look at the footballers. Yeah. How many footballers are having heart attacks?
And they push themselves so hard.
100%.
Do you think they're clean? Do you think there's a lot of PEDs in sports like football?
What do you think?
I would be surprised if most footballers aren't on something and it's being masked.
100%. Yeah. In my opinion, because how much money is involved in football?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I'll throw one at you. Okay. Fighting. How many fighters do you think are clean?
At the highest level, probably not very many.
There's a really interesting way of getting around that, which is when you retire, the random drug tests stop.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So you go on temporary...
I'm not saying
temporary retirement.
Really?
Or you retire and then you have a comeback fight.
Oh, that's an interesting way to do it.
We've seen a few of those comeback fights.
And normally these comeback fights will come back after an injury or a lag of performance or something of some sort. The reality is, right, if you're willing to sacrifice every second of your life to be the best at something,
yeah,
and you come second, and someone says, you know, good, blah de blah's doing this and blah de blah's won.
Yeah.
Let's look at it's not even for it's every sport in the world. Like, you'd have to be seriously naive to think that cheating, and it is, steroid use in sports is cheating. There's no two ways about it. Steroid use in a recreational setting, for me, I think it's as good or as bad as drinking or taking recreational drugs.
Sure, I can see that.
It's your personal choice. You're not hurting me, right? This is why I don't really like having opinions on people, because to say if or he is or isn't on steroids with The Rock, it's none of my business.
Okay.
Is he or isn't he drinking alcohol? It's none of my business. Is he or isn't he taking recreational drugs? It's none of my business. He's not hurting me. Yes, he could be influencing how kids want to look, but so is everyone else.
Yep. With professional sports, do you think if all these guys are on stuff anyway, should we just get rid of the rules and let them
Have you not
have
seen what they're trying to do with the Olympics?
I don't know the specifics.
Don't quote me on this, and I know we are being filmed. I am pretty sure they're trying to bring in the use of drugs within the Olympics.
Okay.
I heard
within the rules.
I heard something within the last week about this. It's definitely some sport. I'm sure it was the Olympics.
Okay.
Now, there's two ways to look at that. One, it would probably be safer.
Yeah. I've heard people say that about the Tour de France, for example, that it's so strenuous that actually some stuff might be healthier for them.
That, and they're going to use anyway.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So where are they getting it from?
Yeah.
Because the chances are it's black market.
Yeah.
So if you can make it safer for individuals, and they can be monitored and they can be tested and they can have the blood work done, and okay, you can use X, Y, and Z, but you've got to make sure that this and this is clean, then that would make it safer. But you've got to look at a lot more than just that. You introduce steroids into combat sport, you've got a problem.
Right.
You've got a big problem.
Inflict more damage.
100% inflict more damage, but also the individuals would have internal issues and markers potentially from the use of drugs, which would make their blood pressure higher, which would make an impact worse, which would make the joints maybe become a different. There's a lot to consider with contact sports. I mean, I'm not. I don't think it will happen overnight, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't introduce certain drugs into sports. Because let's be honest, right? There's more than one reason to take a steroid. Okay. There's a reason they use steroid within hospitals.
Yeah.
Right. If you have a really bad injury as an athlete and your knee gets smashed into pieces, if you were to have an operation and so on and so forth, the recovery process would be so much better with the use of certain, I don't know exactly which ones.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not about to quote which ones are better. I'm not a scientist, but there are certain drugs which will increase the speed of recovery, increase the quality of recovery. Now, if you're using those drugs for that, is that a bad thing, or is it actually helping someone prolong their career
and heal? Just make sure it heals right.
100%.
So that it doesn't. It's not
100%. You know, there's so that for me. I don't think there should be. I don't think there should be necessarily a ban on people that decide to do a steroid or a something post injury.
Yeah.
As long as they're not becoming stronger and better after the use of it, but they're actually just becoming the best version of they can now with the injury. For me, that kind of is a common sense thing. If they're using it to become enhanced, then you've got a different twist.
I guess sometimes that's hard to measure, but
you wouldn't be able to measure it. That's the problem.
That's